it dies every 10 or 20 minutes. And you want to replace the fuel hose and the filters, maybe clean the gunk out of the tank on the ZD28 or some of the later Kubota ZD models. And you're wondering, well, just how much work is this to change all these fuel hoses and filters? Well, if you just change most of the fuel hoses and the filters, then that's okay. But if you want to get that fuel hose that's been on that tank ever since it was new and nobody's ever replaced it, and it feels mushy, like it's about to just collapse, then yeah, let me give you a little heads up on what you're up against. Where I would have started if I'd known all this beforehand is this plate right here that goes in front of the seat. As a matter of fact, I would have taken this plate off too, which would have made the bottom two bolts here and here a lot easier to get to. But luckily for me, I built transmissions for 25 years, so I have things like these swivel sockets. I was able to get in there and get them loose without taking that plate off. But there's two bolts in the back of this plate, besides these bolts in the front, that go through here to here, and the front part of that fender is slipped in between here and pinned between that. So you'll have at least one of the bolts off that gets this out of the way anyhow. But even when you take the bolts out of this, aha, you thought it was easy, it was just going to come off. Well, of course not. It still will not come off even after you take all the bolts out of it, because it'll have this knob here. And as you can see now, it's easy to tell now because it's out. There's not a clip or something that you can take the knob off from the outside. There's all this. The rod goes through here and goes through this adjuster, and this sits on the back, and then there's a nut, which of course fell down there. I'm gonna have to dig out later. Stay tuned, because that's just the beginning. The screens and filters in front of the radiator's got to come off, because you are dealing with taking the fender off. And just like this fender that's still on here, you can see how it goes over there, and those would kind of get in the way of pulling the fender up out of there, because you can see that part of the fender would hit when you try to bring it up. Well, that brings us to the next thing that's in the way. It's right here, which is of course this big heavy thing right here. But if you think you're just going to unbolt that and take it off, no, of course not. Not that easy. Because first you got to get that big heavy roll bar off of there, which goes from one side to the other. And if you're working alone, like I almost always do, well, unless you count Shopcat, and well, even Shopcat, do you see Shopcat anywhere? Is he over here helping? No. Shopcat, why aren't you helping? I don't know what to do with him. Anyway, no matter which side you get on that, you've got the weight of the other side, which is substantial, trying to pull it out of your hands and bring it down on one side of the machine or the other, and hit things and dent things and chip the paint and everything and mash your fingers and all kinds of stuff. And it of course has these bolts and nuts, and it's a king nut with it usually has a pin, but these pins were gone, so there was just some wire there, and then there's another big pin with a cotter key, and that's on both sides. But even then you still can't get this off, because you have that thing that spans from one side to the other that has these 6 nuts that aren't really locking nuts. They're not nylon lock nuts. They've got these lock washers, and they all want to fall down in here and disappear on you. So you have to be really careful, or you have to put a piece of fender cover carefully down there, spread it out, and let it fall on that so you can capture them like a net. Then only after all that can you finally take these nuts loose, which luckily they don't fall down. See, the studs don't fall down. They're still there, and they don't fall down. That's the only good thing I can say about this project so far. These bolts right here, yeah, well, that's the second good thing, because they're kind of like this, where once you spin them out, the nuts are attached on the other side, and so the nuts and threads don't fall out over there either. But that's the easy part. Those come loose, and then you can finally pull that out, which is not quite as heavy as the roll bar, but it is heavy, so you better be careful with it. You definitely don't want to drop that thing on your sore toe. And after all that, the fender is still on there, and you still can't take the fender off, because you still have to take this lid off and set it aside, and make sure you don't drop a bunch of stuff in the tank, because the whole point of cleaning out the tank is to get nasty stuff out of the tank, not put nasty stuff in. And you got to reach below here. Let me show you on this other one. There are these little rubber cutaways. Pull them back, and those, if I remember right, were 13 monkey meters, and they are lock nuts, so that's good. And they are on studs that stay in place, that don't fight you. There's 2 more of them down here, but these are usually just full of trash and have to be cleaned out before you can even get to the nuts. This one on this side is not so bad. About that one. Nope, that one's not as bad as the other one was either. But once those 4 are out, then you can pull this boot back and pull that this way, and then there's 2 bolts holding the arm to this arm right here, and the heads are over here. Now the parking brake arm I was able to leave on. See, it's still on there. Ooh, and it's got a loose bolt down there. No wonder that felt so weird. I'm gonna fix that too while I got this apart. And there's a big enough space right here, you can pull the fender up over the handle of that. But remember, if you haven't got this bolt, it'll still be pinched right here with the bolt going in from this end. So you got to go in at an angle to get that bolt out. And there's another bolt back here, and that bolt goes up in here. And I used the ratchety wrenches on that one. Just got the ratchety head. My Milwaukee fuel on most of the other ones, because I took my Ryobi to my other garage, and the Ryobi probably would have done most of these without any help. It's a lot smaller and lighter. Oh, and in case you didn't notice, I did take the wheel off, so I'd have a little more room, because eventually it's going to have to come off anyway to take the tank off. You're going to see 1, 2, 3, and 4 bolts holding that tank on there, which I'm still not quite ready to tackle yet, because I'm going to open the door and let some air in here before I start doing that. And I'll probably take the lines loose, hoses loose, and put a dummy hose on here and another pump that I saved from an old car, and it's an inline pump, and pump it into some 5-gallon buckets that I cleaned up earlier, because otherwise that's going to be really heavy. I think it's got about 7-8 gallons in it right now, and you see how long and skinny it is. It's going to slosh back and forth, and the weight's going to tip, tip, tip. The underside fuel filter is right there. I've already taken the bolt out of it so that it's just hanging there, the strap. I've got that pair of channel locks pinching off the line so I don't have dripping in here in the garage and stink the place up. There's the fuel pump, which I'm going to replace it too. And here is the other fuel filter, which I replaced the regular inline filter with this water separator and filter combo last time, and you can see I put newer hose on there and everything, but I couldn't get all that other hose replaced without doing the tank, and I just really didn't want to have to be doing this again and again. I want to replace everything this time. Okay, so did we find the problem? Yeah, look at that stuff down in there. That tube is the pickup tube. And this is after I dumped a bunch of diesel out of it, and a lot of that trash came out with it. But you can see there's still big hunks of that trash still in there, clinging to the walls down there, especially in this portion where even when the tank was very low of fuel, there was still fuel there. And that's probably living algae stuff that grew in there. And I have to get every little tiny particle of that out so that there's not a seed, so to speak, to start growing a new culture. If there's anything I said here that'll help you with doing this kind of project, please let me know in the comments. If you got any questions, do that too. I've got a whole playlist on Kubota repairs. I will put a link to that in one corner. Let me know if you want a link to the home repair playlist or the vehicle repair playlist in the other corner of the video here. Till the next video, thanks for watching and commenting, and get off the couch and get dirty.